Okay, where do we want to start? Today is Sunday, February 23rd, 2025, and I wanted to talk a little bit about SSRIs today. My name is Paul, and Jimmy's here with me.
What up?
Last episode, we covered serotonin, but we didn't talk much about the drug that is used to treat what we consider to be serotonin disorders. Today I'm hoping to cover SSRIs a little bit. It's been in the news lately because RFK has made quite a few comments about how unsafe SSRIs are, and I don't think he's going to ban them. Whatnot,
He said
right?
that the withdrawal symptoms are as bad as heroin.
And he would know.
It's like
He would know because he was an addict for a while. He was actually
was
on
he?
the he said heroin made him a better student.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
if you have ADHD, and calming down a little bit can help.
It's kind of weird because heroin is the brand name for diacetylmorphine, Bayer heroin, and it was marketed as a non-addictive alternative to morphine. But plot twist, the two acetyl groups actually increase lipophilicity, which increases binding affinity for the mu opioid receptors, which makes it like more addictive, or at least stronger.
Damn.
And he said he's like falsely attributing it to like mass shooters, which is
right. Oh my god,
being a bullshit artist.
Yeah,
just like mentally unstable people, and they might be taking the drug, but the drug isn't the thing making them like mentally unstable. It's like people who said like video games cause violence. Okay, well, you can be like a violent person and play video games, but the video games aren't the thing making you like disinhibited. Rather, it's more. It might have more something to do with some weird mutation with the MAOA gene. Every serial killer that they ever performed a biopsy on, they found some weird mutation with the MAOA gene, monoamine oxidase A, an enzyme responsible for metabolizing monoamine neurotransmitters.
Yeah,
like dopamine and serotonin.
And so that's actually. Do you know how those were discovered?
What?
MAOIs?
No, how? Monoamine. Okay, so I was talking about an enzyme, MAOA, monoamine oxidase A. Paul was talking about MAOI, monoamine oxidase.
Yeah, I'm talking about the drug that inhibits them.
Which monoamine oxidase inhibitor?
Exactly.
A drug that inhibits the activity of said enzyme. How were they discovered? I don't know. I just know about them. I don't know how they were.
Well, we'll flash back to 1850. You know, there's a thing called consumption going around, killing many people. I think it was
tuberculosis.
Close to 1 in 7 people would die from tuberculosis.
It was basically a death sentence,
and that increased to 1 in 4 people in the 1900s or the late 1800s.
Oh,
yeah, all sorts of nicknames like the captain of all of these men of death, consumption. White something because of how it would turn its victims white.
It was known as consumption because like you just couldn't retain body mass. You just became a skeleton and then it just fucking died. And I know it as tuberculosis, TB.
Yep, tuberculosis. Yep. So
is a bacteria?
So at first, no one had any idea why these people were dying. I thought, maybe it's genetic. Maybe they're just weak-spirited people. Who knows?
Yeah. I think I played into diseases that fuck people up and make them cough up blood. It's an actual thing. It has nothing to do with like being weak-spirited. It's like an actual corporeal thing happening to their organs that we're looking at right now. How does this pertain to monoamine oxidase inhibitors?
We'll get there. It's actually really
full circle.
Really interesting. Yeah, it's really interesting.
So people like getting fresh air with all the other people trying to get fresh air.
Yeah, sanatoriums.
Yeah.
So that one of the reasons it was so easily spread is because like we didn't like hygiene was terrible. People were all crammed into cities.
Mm-hmm.
You know, things were really unhygienic. And again, this is a bacteria, so this is a great way for it to spread between people. And this was young people dying. Like we got to a point where it's like 1 in 4 people. It was the leading cause of death. A class of drugs called hydrazine derivatives, specifically a drug called isoniazid, was very effective at combating tuberculosis. I think it had something to do with degrading a protein in the cell wall of the bacterium. While they're on this search to find more of these hydrazine derivatives to help treat tuberculosis, one drug in particular called iproniazide.
Yeah, 1 sec. Let me look that up. Iproniazide?
Yeah. Iproniazide had this interesting side effect. Some of the people being treated for tuberculosis became euphoric and just, they were like, holy shit, I feel amazing. I feel really good right now, doc.
That's hilarious.
So it became a treatment for depression. Now the thing is,
a drug meant to treat tuberculosis, and a side effect of it was just getting high. It kind of looks like it could be like a phenethylamine or whatever. But anyways, okay, so yeah, it looks like
it's a hydrazine derivative of some flavor. I'm not really familiar with the chemistry.
It looks like it could mimic a couple of neurotransmitters.
Yeah, and that's basically what it did. It worked. It was the first MAOI. It inhibited monoamine oxidase. So what it did, it blocked serotonin, the enzyme that degrades serotonin, and the enzyme that degraded dopamine. So this was kind of a 1-2 thing. Like, it wasn't just serotonin. The problem is that this drug in particular had extreme side effects, like really dangerous side effects. First of all, hydrazine derivatives are already very toxic for your liver.
When you said hydrazine, I was like, oh, that's like fuel for rockets. You don't want to you don't want to fuck around with hydrazine too much.
I know.
Ammonia, yikes.
So if you were lucky enough to dodge the liver toxicity of this drug, you'd have to spend the rest of your life on an extremely restricted diet that consisted basically of fresh fruit and I think like some soy products. If you accidentally ate aged cheese or certain types of fruits, you would go into hypertensive shock. Yeah, you'd have a hypertensive crisis. Literally, they called it the cheese effect.
Your brain could bleed. Yikes. Any food high in tyramine, and the dietary tyramine.
This was the first
because
ever had a drug
heard about it.
that could help people. That could help people with depression.
Right.
So once we realized this, people started researching. Okay, is there anything we can do to reduce these side effects? Is there something we can do? Well, there were two different kind of facets to why it was so dangerous. Number one, it wasn't selective. It didn't target serotonin in particular. It kind of targeted a lot. It targeted anything that
there's a lot of things. Phenethylamine. There's a lot of things that it looks like it could mimic. A lot of receptors that it could bind to, probably.
Right. It was an irreversible binding. So any enzyme that it would bind to permanently, and the enzyme would never work again.
Right.
So by addressing those two facets, those two major problems with the drug, they were able to discover things called selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors that reversibly bound to these enzymes. So it wasn't a permanent binding thing.
Right.
And the side effects basically evaporated. There were no more life-threatening crises caused by this class of drug, but they still had a profound effect on people with severe depression. So this is kind of where we get to what RFK is trying to say. He's saying that there are severe side effects, which is just not true. We've dealt with drugs that have severe side effects, this ain't it.
You're talking about selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors.
SSRIs, right?
Yes.
Right.
So we're going. So first we discovered the MAOIs, monoamine oxidase inhibitors, but because they didn't discriminate as to what receptors they binded to, and whatever receptors they did bind to, it was completely irreversible at the binding state, rendering that enzyme like kind of fucked. So from there we kind of synthesized selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, so it only binds to serotonin. We have other ones that bind, like the second generation. It's kind of funny, like cocaine. The second generation tricyclic antidepressant amitriptyline binds to the 3 serotonin, norepinephrine, and dopamine, I think it was. So we have like drugs that target specific receptors rather than just indiscriminately just binding any one that looks like it.
Yeah, exactly. There's selectivity.
And it's reversible. So that's good.
Tricyclics are a little different because they they block the reuptake of both serotonin and norepinephrine, not just serotonin. So they are a little bit different.
Right.
In terms of their side effects, I think that SSRIs are generally better tolerated than TCAs.
Yes.
Patients are less likely to discontinue treatments with SSRIs compared to TCAs due to, again, the adverse side effects. So it's just frustrating that we have this guy talking about how horrible SSRI side effects are when they are the best class for this with the least.
I know. Well, his only qualification moving forward, I'm going to refer to him as Leatherface Brainworms, and his only qualification is that he simps for Agent Orange. That's literally his only qualification that got him.
He has the job because he dropped out of the race in order to not pull.
It's purely political. So I would not really listen to anything. I would say take it with a grain, but don't even do that.
I would assume that what happened is that he tried them in the past, and
it didn't work as well as heroin, so it sucks, and therefore it should be banned.
Right. But long story short, there are still side effects. There are still side effects of SSRIs. They're not perfect drugs. And what I think we need to keep the context in is how bad it could be. Like it could be bad. I mean, SSRIs, I think there's like decreased libido, I think weight gain, some other things, and coming off of them after having been on them for a while, it's not going to feel great, but it's not, it's nowhere near heroin withdrawal. And these side effects are nowhere near the side effects of MAOIs or older classes of antidepressants.
Right.
And the bottom line is, they can be extremely helpful with people that suffer from severe depression. Yes. Now, people with mild depression, mild anxiety, they're probably not necessary. You might benefit more from therapy, but they do still lower the threshold. They are still useful drugs and a useful part of doctors' toolkits for treating this kind of stuff. I mean, anxiety and depression are huge. Like, was it like 1 in 10 adults, probably more, suffer from these things?
I know, like 40% of the population is afflicted with depression, and I find it weird that there's like a stigma around it. I forgot my train of thought.
But yeah, I mean, long story short, it would be a terrible idea to ban them in the first place, and there is no reason to be banning them. I mean, it doesn't make sense to say that their side effects are terrible. Or that they're not effective. They are effective for the people that really need them.
The gold standard is medication combined with therapy. That's right. what I was gonna say.
Totally. They're only half a treatment. And if you're if you're thinking that SSRIs are going to cure you alone, it's just not the case.
It's a tool to help you kind of work with your brain, and like you said, if it's mild,
the threshold of effort needed for therapy to work, because therapy can be hard work, and cognitive behavioral therapy is really, really effective, but it does take effort. And that's the thing, asking someone with depression to do all this effort when they barely have the energy to get up in the morning and tie their shoes and put their clothes on and shower. It's like kind of asking a lot. You can't be slamming doors on tried and true effective
that are safe
treatments and sounding the alarm on those as if they are some dangerous thing. We've had dangerous things before. This is not that.
No, it's much better than heroin and an MAOI, because MAOI makes your brain bleed. So that's kind of a slap in the face to the medical community.
Like, science really is an exploratory process. So like cutting funding to labs and drastically reducing scientific funding is like, that's like, I know. We're snuffing out like one of the few routes and proven tools that we have to reduce suffering in this world, and it's like do not cut this shit.
I know.
Fuck, we're in some dark times, man. Like, the dude literally thinks that AIDS is caused by poppers. Like, that's just
that's like, because he's making false connections, and that would be all well and good, but this is like the guy who's like the head of the Department of Health and Human Services. So
right, I mean, that's the real danger here. Like, this guy who does not understand kind of basic fundamental like science about what diseases are and how they spread, should not be the U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services. Like this,
it just goes to reiterate like
bad.
just a failure of the system, failure of the education system. That was interesting. I didn't realize like tuberculosis is how we discovered MAOIs.
And it's because we were funding research into diseases. It does just we never know what path it's going to lead us down.
Right.
Like we need to have the funding like this.
Right. Research. That's why research is very important because you never know what the hell you'll discover. All kinds
we don't know what we don't know.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
This is isoniazid, the tuberculosis drug. This is iproniazid, a more sterically hindered version. This is the first MAOI, and this is fluoxetine, the first ever SSRI.